As soon as I became isolated, the transformation actually started. And it became so clear to me what I needed to do, how I needed to do it in order to step into a higher level of consciousness. And for people who answer the call that God has given them, God wants to do the same thing in all of their lives. Hey y'all, welcome back to Holistic Flow. I am your girl, Lolo, and today I'm here to talk about why you may feel like you're always left out, why you may feel like there's no place for you, and why you feel like you have no friends. And I'm talking about when you may say things to yourself like, I feel like I'm a good person and I treat people well. I try to be friends to people, but why am I always the one being mistreated? Why don't I have those close-knit group of friends that other people seem to have very easily? Or why can't I keep friends? All of my friends have been so temporary. Specifically, this is an experience that I have had all of my life. And I know a lot of people also have this experience, probably more people than we think. Even though people may experience a similar situation, because everybody is an individual, they'll still have a very different experience that is tailored to them as a person. Nonetheless, I still wanted to kind of input some of my own experiences with this topic into this video. Before I get into this video, if you are new here to my channel, hello. Here on Holistic Flow, we are creating a safe space, a space for self-love, self-growth, and maturity. And we're taking a journey towards an overall better mind, body, and spirit connection. So if you're with that, go ahead and subscribe to my channel. Turn on your notifications so you know whenever I upload a new video. If you have done that, thank you so much. And let's get into this one. I organized the different topics of this video into 10 parts. So you can say 10 reasons why you might feel alone. There's a difference between being alone and being lonely. Being alone, it generally pertains to the physicality of being by yourself. However, feeling lonely, you are not physically alone. Even though you may be surrounded by people, you feel lonely, emotionally, or spiritually. This is my personal opinion that feeling lonely is a choice, because even when you are physically alone, you're never really alone mentally or emotionally. You don't have to be, at least. And I'll get to that throughout this video. So here is part one, or reason one. We often feel lonely because we are expecting our social life to look like what we see it looking like for other people. And as much as we want to think that we don't compare our lives to other people's lives, all of us do. It's kind of a natural human thing. This comparison of our social life to other people's social life is actually a large part of our human development. In a book called Adolescence in Context by Tara L. Cruther, the author talked about how in the age ranges of middle school, children go from becoming most influenced by their parents and guardians to being most influenced by their peers and the people their age. And even though this influence can lead to a lot of harmful things like peer pressure to do certain things that adolescents think are cool, like form into cliques and be mean to each other for fun, that's so weird. Being influenced by your peers in the ages of middle school and even up into high school, that was a huge part of all of our development. For some adolescents who may not have gotten that, you'll notice that kids who were kind of sheltered in earlier on in life turned out to be a lot different developmentally than other kids who got the public exposure of trying to figure out where that young person fits in with the world. With people who find out that they are having a hard time fitting in, you probably start to notice this around the time of early middle school. Other friends that we used to have get into their groups, and what we need gets clouded because we're only seeing what we think we want. And the real truth is that in those friendships that we saw other people having, there was a whole bunch of stuff that we did not need in our lives, that we cannot see because they were behind the scenes. That's one thing that I'm gonna get deeper into later on into the video. But to wrap up this point number one, we often want the things that we see other people have and not the things that we ourselves as an individual need in our life. Part two, people who are alone physically are often the people who are quote quote unquote chosen. Many are called, few are chosen. Many people are called to live a life that has to isolate themselves from the people who, again, influence them to maybe not do some great things, step up to a higher plate and raise their consciousness. However, few are the people who actually answer the call and be the big dog. What chosen actually refers to is the people who say, maybe I'm just going to stop trying to force my social interactions with other people. And I'm not going to fill my life with relationships that leave me feeling empty, all because I don't want to feel lonely. Because let's face it, that's what we see many people doing. Again, many people are called. However, those same people are scared to be alone. So they kind of fill their lonely void with things that are never gonna fill them up. If you feel like you have no friends, it's for nothing else than your benefit. It's so that you don't have all these distractions and all this nothingness in your life. You are in a great place to live a life that is as free as it can be from distractions that will take you off course from raising your level of consciousness every day. So it's almost as if we choose ourselves to be chosen without really even knowing it. The people who are called to live this life are out here choosing distraction. By answering the call, you're actually choosing divinity. Distraction versus divinity. Yeah, that's a good one. Sometimes the reason why we have to keep getting done dirty by people is so that something can click in our mind that, okay, I need to change the type of people that I'm hanging around. God has to move and shift things around for us to be isolated. It is isolation from other people's negative energy that helps us detoxify and see clearly. And that brings me to part 3, or reason 3, why you might feel like you have no friends and don't fit in. It's because you are saving your energy. The story of our life is a battle between our mind and our spiritual or divine self. And sometimes when our mind doesn't know what to do, our spiritual self, the part of us that can access infinite knowledge, speaks up for our mind and says, hey, I'm going to subconsciously save your energy by isolating you from other people, because I'm your spiritual self, your higher self. I know what's better for you than your mind knows what's better for you. And thank God for our spiritual self, because a lot of us would allow our energy to be drained because we don't think there's anything better for us in life. Part 4 is that you are a leader. Natural leaders kind of like lead in silence. They don't have time to be influenced by the world. People naturally look up to you and you may not even know why. You may not think that you're a good leader, a good role model. Sometimes we're like, okay, I didn't ask to be a role model. Well, there's a lot of things in life we don't ask for. That's actually the beauty of it, because if we are living our life off of our mental self and not our spiritual self, we will try to rationalize and say, I'm not a good leader. But that's probably because you don't know yourself enough, and you actually are a better leader than what your mind wants you to think. We are all good enough to lead other people if we learn how to shed our ego self. Our ego is really the only thing that gives us self-doubt. When other people see something in you that you are resistant to seeing in yourself, that's your ego talking. Which brings me to number 5. God is really trying to wake you up. When I first started my YouTube channel in the year 2020, a lot of people were just told to take several seats. I mean, it made all of us be isolated. And if you lost some friends in 2020, it was probably for your good. When I first started my channel, I would show a side of myself that I had kind of kept hidden a lot before. I personally knew that I was distinguished from others around me at the time. I wanted to live my life for something greater than just what the people around me wanted to live their lives for. I did not want to seem like I thought that I was more superior, which I don't. I'm just another human being. I tried to dim my light so that other people wouldn't feel small, which we sometimes try to do. And this is basically something that I have been doing since my adolescence, like I talked about earlier. Adolescence is kind of when this process starts. I have been dimming my light for so long throughout my life that actually when I would try to show brighter sides of myself, some of the people around me would actually make fun of me for doing so. In the year 2020, God opened my eyes. He had to have me fall off with multiple different people to show me that I shouldn't have to, and nobody should have to do this. As soon as I became isolated, the transformation actually started. And it became so clear to me what I needed to do, how I needed to do it in order to step into a higher level of consciousness. And for people who answer the call that God has given them, God wants to do the same thing in all of their lives. Because we often live life off of our mental space and not our spiritual, we often don't even want what God wants for us, even though He wants the best for us more than any other human being could ever want for us. And it's just crazy that like He will offer us all these things and all these upgrades, but we won't take them because we're living again off of our human knowledge, so we don't believe that we deserve those greater heights. It's all really crazy. No, the sixth reason why you might not have any friends is that other people may think that you are too good to hang out with them. I feel like it's an experience of people who may not even think that they don't have friends, right? Have you ever wanted to do something that you know you shouldn't have been doing, but you just wanted to have fun and live your life, maybe turn up a bit? Maybe y'all are in a setting, there's people smoking, drinking, and you want to join in. And people are like, you do that? Other people are surprised. They might tell you that, nah, you shouldn't be doing that. People may tell you that you're too good to do the things that they're doing. I'll give you another example. When people slip up and cuss in front of me, they apologize. When people think you are good or pure, it can get frustrating sometimes because a lot of us want to be relatable to people because relatability is how you get social with people, right? You find friends because y'all two relate on a certain topic. Y'all like to do the same things. And if other people perceive that you don't engage in the same activities as them, you don't have the same interests as them, you're not going to seem relatable. You may be perceived as lame or a party pooper. I think this is one of the most prevalent signs that you're just cut from a different cloth. This was one of the hardest things for me to accept personally. This is sometimes why we act like something we're not, to get friends, to fit in. We've all done it. But after I started, having my eyes opened or whatnot, I started to see how much I was not missing out on. You're saving yourself, or your higher self actually, is saving yourself so much drama, so much ignorance, so much stuff you really don't need in your life. And while we may still have a desire to do things that other people think that we're too good to do, this is a prime example of looking at something and thinking that it's something that we want, but that isn't something that we need. This brings me to part 6. You probably don't even enjoy the things that you think you're missing out on when you don't get invited to things, but just the fact that you weren't invited or the fact that you do feel left out makes you have exactly that, the fear of missing out, FOMO. And it's because, like I said before, you're cut from a different cloth. Number 8 is that you are Garnet from Steven Universe. Stay with me because this is a great analogy. Like I said before, the story of our life is a battle between our mental self and our spiritual self, our ego and our divine self. You can think of the mind and the spirit as polar opposites, like the devil on one shoulder and the angel on the other. Yeah, that kind of thing. You can think of the mind and body as one. The mind is physical, the body is physical. The spirit, it's not anything tangible that we can feel. Garnet is a character from a show that I love called Steven Universe. Garnet. She lives as a fusion. She's made up of 2 different crystal gems. Their names are Ruby and Sapphire. Ruby is a crystal gem that can kind of be a hothead sometimes. And then Ruby combines with Sapphire, which is cold a lot of the times. Ruby and Sapphire are 2 polar opposites, but that is why they work well in a fusion, which creates Garnet. And because she is very aware of her 2 separate sides, she always feels full. She's never empty. Her spiritual side and her mental side have conversations with each other. And here's the thing, everyone is a Garnet. However, some people are more efficient at being Garnet than others. Everybody has a mental and a spiritual side. However, some people, like I said before, mostly operate off of the mental aspect of ourselves, and it overshadows the spiritual side to where we don't even use it. But that spiritual side is what helps us level up to new heights. Because you are a Garnet, you have special things to do, and they probably don't involve getting caught up into a lot of nonsense, unless that nonsense is necessary for your spiritual growth. And both of those sides need to work in harmony. Reason number 9 that you might not have that many friends is that you value friendships with depth instead of shallow friendships. I personally don't believe that there's anybody who absolutely has no friends. If you believe that is your case, that you absolutely have no friends in this world, I want to actually challenge you to look around at the people who are in your life that maybe aren't friends, but you would say they're acquaintances. Sometimes, because we're comparing what we have to what other people have, we think that our friendships are supposed to look like what we see them look like all the time. But because we're just different, our friendships aren't supposed to look like the mainstream type of friendships. They may look like acquaintanceships. Some of the best friends that I've ever had, I either did not talk to them every day, maybe like once or twice a week. They maybe lived in another state and we don't see each other often. The type of sociability that you want may be somebody to talk to every single day. Someone who you're always in sync with. They're always there in case you say, hey, pull up. You can always depend on them to do whatever you need. We want that. However, what we sometimes need is independence, more time and space to ourselves, to cultivate real self-love. And some of us actually may need to learn how to confide in people less, because sometimes we fail to see how imperfect other people can be. The amount of trust that we put in somebody can sometimes dehumanize them. Think about all the stuff you've done, all the times that you did somebody dirty. We probably feel like we don't deserve to be trusted, right? Well then, if we're all human beings and we're all going to be human, think about the amount of trust and confidence that we put in other people to stay within certain guidelines. Then once they step out of our trust, we say, oh, people ain't beep. Sometimes the reason why we need to be isolated is so that we can trust ourselves more and trust other people less. I actually have a whole video that I did more than a year ago about my opinion on trusting other people. I'll put it in the card above so you can go ahead and watch it if you want to. Because your spiritual self speaks louder than your mental self now, you crave friendships and bonds that have meaning. That is kind of more 50-50 rather than 30-60. Rather than 30-70. Number 10 is probably the hardest one to accept if this is your circumstance. You can get friends, but it's hard to keep friends. When you find that you bring a lot of positivity into somebody else's life and you pour into other people around you, but it's only temporary, and after you know it, that bond is broken. You actually play a vital role in other people's healing processes by bringing the light that you have into their life, by bringing positivity, by bringing wise words. When you are spiritually mature, a lot of people recognize that in you. They recognize that either you're a leader, or they may recognize that you have healing properties. They always come to you for a shoulder to cry on, or to vent, or for advice. And you may feel like you have to constantly pour into other people without you really getting anything in return. And that's where sometimes it can feel a bit empty. And that emptiness is where the feeling of loneliness comes in. Feeling lonely is purely emotional, and it's an illusion. Remember that we are Garnet. So we have two different sides of us, this mental self and the emotional self. That means we have the power to talk to ourselves, feed our self-love. You can think of our mental self and our spiritual self as two different entities or two different parts. And loneliness is feeling like one of these parts is gone, most likely the spiritual part. But if these two parts of us recognize that they're there for each other. That is how we prevent from feeling this emptiness. We're constantly there providing healing to other people. We'll never feel like we're giving it all up and then we're empty, because we can refill ourselves. So the real reason why you may feel like you don't fit in or there's not a place for you, it's time to develop a new way of thinking that distinguishes yourself from the rest of the world. It is not just an advantage, but it is the advantage. So that's all for this video. I hope that you enjoyed it. And if you did, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you have not done so already. I hope to see you in my next video. But until then, I'm sending peace your way, love your way, and joy to you, your family, and your friends. All right, y'all. Peace.